Ready to dig into something really different today. We're talking about La Lupa de la Nueva Medicina.
Oh, this one. Yeah, Dr. Callahan's work, it's definitely makes you think.
It challenges pretty much everything we think we know about health and healing, doesn't it? I mean, even the title, right? La Lupa, a magnifying glass.
It's like he's saying, look closer. Don't just accept the standard explanations.
Exactly. And he doesn't shy away from controversy, especially when it comes to how conventional medicine approaches things. He calls it a medicine of panic.
Yeah, he really lays into that.
In the introduction, he tells the story about being a medical student, seeing how they treated a young man, terminal lung cancer. And what really got to him wasn't even the disease itself.
It was their attitude.
The coldness, the detachment, like they were treating the disease, not the person.
Right, and that kind of sets the stage for this whole idea of medicine of panic, all about suppressing symptoms, controlling the body, without ever asking.
Why?
Yeah, why is the body doing this in the first place?
And could this fear-based approach actually be making things worse?
It's like constantly being in fight mode,
Hmm.
right? It takes a toll.
And that leads us to the heart of Dr. Callejón's argument, this idea that illness, especially serious illnesses like cancer, it's not random, it's not some malfunction.
It's our body trying to tell us something, trying to adapt.
Like a message.
A message written in the language of symptoms.
And that's where he brings in Dr. Hamer's work, New Medicine, and this idea of the DHS.
Ah, the Ryke Hamer syndrome. It's a mouthful, but it's pretty profound when you really think about it.
So for those who haven't heard of it, explain it. Break it down.
Well, it's basically this. Every illness, especially something major like cancer, it starts with an emotional shock, like a really unexpected, highly stressful event.
Okay, so not just your everyday stress.
No, something that really throws you for a loop. Like imagine, let's say you're expecting a big inheritance, got your whole life planned around it, and suddenly it's gone. Poof.
And that kind of shock, that's the DHS.
It can be. And that's where the body goes, whoa, hold on, something's wrong.
And it reacts.
It reacts, but not always in ways we expect or understand.
And this is all about understanding that mind-body connection, right? Which Dr. Callejón takes even further with those terms he uses, metaphors and metonymies.
Right. He's getting at how intertwined our physical and emotional selves really are.
So explain those terms, because
Yeah.
they're not something we hear every day.
So metaphor in this context, think of it like this. A physical symptom can actually symbolize an emotional conflict.
Okay. Got an example. Give me an example.
He talks about a woman who develops a bladder tumor after a really, really messy divorce. It's like her body was expressing that emotional pain, that sense of loss, in a physical way.
So it's almost like our bodies are speaking to us in symbols.
In a way, yeah. And then metonymy, that's like the flip side. It's how our mental and emotional states can reflect things happening in our bodies that we might not even be aware of.
Like how so?
Say you've been battling chronic fatigue for months, just dragging yourself through the day. Well, maybe that's your body still dealing with the after effects of fighting off an infection, even though you don't feel sick anymore.
So it's all connected.
Deeply connected. And to truly understand illness, we can't just treat the physical symptoms. We have to look at the whole picture, the emotional landscape, the mind-body connection.
It's a very different way of thinking about health. Okay, so all of this new way of thinking about illness, Dr. Callejón lays it out in those 5 laws of new medicine, right?
Right, and they can be a lot to take in.
Yeah, let's break them down for people who are hearing all this for the first time.
Okay, so we've got law number 1, the DHS, the Ryke Hamer syndrome, and it's really the foundation of everything else.
Right, so we've talked about it a little, but lay it out again.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean?
Basically, it says that every illness, especially the big ones like cancer, it starts with one of these DHSs, a Ryke Hamer syndrome.
Which is?
An unexpected emotional shock, something big.
Not just like, missing a deadline at work.
No, something that really rocks your world. Callejón compares it to being mugged.
Like a threat to your survival almost.
Yeah, your body goes into this whole fight or flight mode, your nervous system freaks out.
And that can trigger an illness.
That's what Hamer believed. And that's where the second law comes in.
Okay, so the second law, what's that about?
This is where things get really interesting. It's called the 2 phases of disease.
2 phases. So it's not just one thing after the DHS.
No, it's a whole process. First, you've got the conflict active phase.
Which is?
Your body's in that fight or flight mode. Sympathetic nervous system takes over.
So you're on edge, can't sleep, heart's racing.
Exactly. Your body's flooded with adrenaline. You're focused on resolving that conflict, whatever it is.
Okay, so what kinds of things happen in this first phase?
It all depends on the nature of the conflict, where you feel it. He gives all these different examples. Could be tumor growth, ulcers, even paralysis.
So it manifests in different ways for everyone.
Right, but it's always the body trying to adapt, trying to find a way to survive that conflict.
And then what happens once the conflict is resolved, or at least you're not acutely in it anymore?
That's when you shift into the second phase, the healing phase.
So this is where things start to get better.
In a way, yeah. Your parasympathetic nervous system takes over. Rest and digest, as they say.
Okay, so the body's finally able to relax a little, start to repair the damage.
Exactly. But here's where it gets a little weird, at least compared to how we usually think about illness.
How so?
Because this is when you might see things like fever, inflammation, infections.
Wait, so you get sick as you're healing?
It's not that simple.
Hmm.
Hamer believed that these things, even infections, they're not the enemy. They're a part of the healing process.
What do you mean?
Well, he talks about microbes, bacteria, viruses, all those things we're told are bad.
Yeah.
He saw them as playing a crucial role in this second phase, cleaning up the mess, so to speak.
So like restoring balance after the chaos of that first phase?
Exactly.
That's wild and a lot different from how we usually think about germs.
It's a total paradigm shift. And it gets even more complex with the third and fourth laws.
Which are?
Okay, so the third law, it's called the ontogenetic system of tumors. And it basically says that where an organ came from, way back when you were just a little embryo.
You mean like developing in the womb?
Exactly. That influences how it reacts to stress now.
So our development as embryos affects our health as adults.
That's the idea. It's like each organ has this kind of pre-programmed response based on its evolutionary history.
Okay. And then the fourth law, how does that fit in?
It builds on the third. It's called the ontogenetic system of microbes.
So not just organs, but microbes too.
Right. So Hamer believed that just like certain organs are linked to certain emotional conflicts, different types of microbes are involved in the healing phases of different organs.
So it's all connected.
Deeply connected. The emotional shock, the organ that's affected, even the specific microbes that help it heal.
Wow. It's like this whole hidden world working behind the scenes.
And the fifth law, that's where it all comes together.
The fifth law, the biological meaning of disease. This is where it gets really deep, doesn't it?
This is the heart of it all, yeah. This is where Hamer says, look, illness isn't a mistake. It's not some random breakdown.
It's purposeful.
Exactly. It's the body's way of adapting to a difficult situation, trying to survive.
So, like when we see symptoms, we shouldn't just try to get rid of them.
Hamer would say it's more important to understand what those symptoms are trying to tell us, what's out of balance, what needs attention.
It makes you think about Dr. Callahan's own story. His daughter, Barbara, diagnosed with a sarcoma when she was only 13.
Oh, yeah, and he talks about how he used these principles to help her through it. Didn't just hand it over to conventional medicine.
He saw it as an opportunity to learn from her illness, to support her body's own healing process.
And it wasn't easy. He's very honest about that. But he also talks about how empowering it was for both of them.
And what really struck me was how Barbara, years later, she talked about her experience. And she wasn't bitter or angry. She saw it as something that, in a way, made her stronger.
It's like that idea, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But it's more than that. It's about finding meaning in the experience.
And realizing that our bodies are capable of incredible things.
We have this innate ability to heal, to restore balance. But we have to trust in that process.
And maybe, just maybe, by understanding these 5 laws, by shifting our perspective on illness, we can start to tap into that potential.
It's about working with our bodies, not against them. And that's a powerful message.
So for our listener out there who's maybe just starting to explore these ideas, what would you say to them?
I'd say keep asking questions. Keep learning. Don't be afraid to challenge the conventional wisdom. Your health is your own journey.
It's about finding what works for you. And that might mean looking beyond the traditional medical model, exploring alternative approaches.
And most importantly, listening to your body. It's trying to tell you something. Are you listening?
That's something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Until next time.